Hello and welcome to the Responsibility We Carry Athletic Support Service Learning Series. I am your co-host, Travis Ballard. I currently serve as the N4A ECC Institutional Partnership Program Chair. And our other co-host for today is Ms. Lucy Mason, who also serves as our ECC IPP Learning Series Director and Editor. Today, we bring you part one of our learning series on new administrators, and we have a passionate leader within the intercollegiate athletic space, and more importantly, just an incredible human being, someone who I call just a great friend, Mr. Josh Calhoun, Athletic Academic Advisor at the University of Oklahoma. Josh, welcome. Just a pleasure to have you on with us today.
Yeah, appreciate it, Travis and Lucy. Good to be here.
I get the privilege of doing your introduction today. So this is the first one I've gotten the opportunity to do on the web series, but started off at Colorado Mesa University, where you received your psychology degree and worked with the athletic event staff. So kind of that first taste into the athletic space. And then upon graduation, you spent just over 2 years as in your role as a community health worker before going to the University of Wyoming and working as an athletic academic intern while you were getting your master's in counseling. Upon graduation, you worked at Florida State University as an assistant academic advisor, where you worked with the football and women's tennis teams. You currently serve as an academic advisor for the men's and women's track and field and cross country teams and men's gymnastics at the University of Oklahoma. So welcome, we're excited to have you on and to really get to hear your experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So Josh, we're going to jump right into this. I think the viewers will really just appreciate the diverse amount of experiences that you have. To some, maybe an uncommon path to where you've gotten today. A non-student athlete that got into the field of athletics. Talk about that transition. Talk about what got you into the field of athletics and the role that you're in right now.
Yeah, my path, to where I am now is kind of, I think, a little bit different than what I think most people, would think it would be the path to get to. Like, Travis just mentioned, I wasn't a former student athlete. Growing up, I was athletic like many of us, participating in sports. I was a swimmer growing up in Wyoming, but, during, my high school years, I kind of lost that, as many, student athletes feel throughout their careers, and all of us, we get kind of burnt out from our sport. And so I knew at a pretty, later on in my high school years, I wasn't going to be a student athlete. I didn't plan to pursue, that path when I went to college, but I always, want to be somehow involved in athletics. I liked athletics. I like kind of what athletics stood for, how you can grow and develop with the sport and be able to use those skills and knowledge into, other areas of your life. And so when I went off to Colorado Mesa University in Grand Junction, Colorado, still want to be part of athletics, in some shape or form. So I worked in, the facilities and event management department down there. While pursuing my degree in psychology, since I always knew I wanted to help people, but didn't know exactly how, in a sense, but really kind of felt, that was my area. I just didn't know exactly what yet. But of course, upon graduation, again, kind of a little, different, path to where I am now. I didn't go straight into this role. I started in a different area, a different career as a community health worker, as Lucy had mentioned, working in the mental health field in Colorado. And that role kind of just really just connecting people to resources, supporting them in a mental health aspect. But then realizing when it was time to go back to school and go to grad school, I thought, working with young adults and that kind of influence, young adults, student athletes, perfect, kind of combination world. So initially going back to, the University of Wyoming, and at first, pursuing my, grad degree in mental health counseling, because I thought, maybe I'll get into like the sports psychology area of student athletes and helping them in that, capacity. But then, after a year, realizing that wasn't exactly what I, was really my calling and what I was meant to do as far as supporting student athletes. So academics, of course, for a lot of us are very important, and, education as far as getting you to those next steps in your career. And so, after a year in my mental health counseling degree, made a switch actually into higher education administration, and kind of had to start over. But then I started realizing during that time, like I kind of want to start working with student athletes in the academic side, that support. And that kind of led me to that internship working in the University of Wyoming's Athletic Academic Center, their department there. And that's kind of how it really started and, really introducing me to the field. And so kind of has had a reset in a sense, started a new program, started working in a different area, but still helping and supporting people. Spent 2 years there, great learning experience. And then afterwards, realizing, still need more of that, in-depth really knowledge and skills and just development. And so luckily enough, had the great opportunity to, apply and was accepted to the internship down at Florida State University, which, still is, and I think is really the big reason why I am here right now, sitting at the University of Oklahoma, and how I'm being a part of that internship down there for a year, where they really dove into those skills, those development, that knowledge of what it takes to be an academic advisor and supporting our student athletes on the academic side. So really, it's been a great year there. And then of course, started applying for jobs when that internship was wrapping up, and lucky enough and fortunate enough to be where I am now at the University of Oklahoma.
I really liked hearing about, how these experiences, how you transitioned into each experience and how they help provide you information for that next role. I know when I went through the process of going through graduate assistantship and then going to the full-time role, although I was prepared, I still had a huge anxiety and I had a huge condition of imposter syndrome, feeling like I have to be the best at everything, but I don't know a lot.
Yeah.
Can you kind of describe that feeling of having to put in extra hours, and that imposter syndrome that exists at that time as a new administrator?
Yeah. I mean, I think you can say that for any job, a young person entering a new career field and whatnot. Like, you want to do right off the bat, you want to get off to a strong start. You want to show, your supervisors, your coworkers that, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I can be someone that can be trusted, in this role. And at the end of the day, people know that I've done my job. And so it is very, that imposter, kind of feeling of just like, I'm going to act like I know what I'm doing, but deep down I'm like, help, like exactly what do I need to be doing and whatnot. So, I mean, yeah, but I think that's just part of the growth and development that you have in this field, specifically with, college athletics and in academics, of just knowing, there's only so much that you can, learn and grow from as, like, say, an assistant, academic advisor or internship before, it's really like, okay, now it's time to put it into a practice and whatnot, and really applying what you've learned in kind of a real, situation where, you don't have that as kind of, as I always, thought of it during my time at Florida State, that assistant, cushion, being able to be like, hey, I'm just the assistant to the actual, academic advisor. So having that kind of safety blanket, which was nice to have, as, I was growing and developing in this field. But then once that's taken off, you're just like, okay, it's on me now. And you want to, again, have that, when you enter that first full-time position, like, yes, I know what I'm doing. And there's going to be growth and development plans along the way of just knowing that you're not going to be perfect. And no matter, talking with lots of people in this field, like, there's still, and whatnot, there's always room for growth and development. You're always learning and knowing, again, we're humans, you're not going to be perfect. You will make mistakes and whatnot. It's just more so just, again, learning from the mistakes. How can that grow and, and develop you better moving forward? And just knowing that, it's always a process in this field, and you'll continue to learn, you'll continue to get better, and you'll continue to make mistakes. So just knowing that has really helped me, in my first year here at Oklahoma, kind of realize, you're all right, you're doing all right.
As we talk about that transition into that first full-time role, I'm curious if you felt the need to kind of put in extra hours to prove the value that you have or can bring to a team when you started that position, and did that extra time you were putting in prove to make it difficult when you were trying to balance just maybe other areas of life?
Yeah.
Whether that be, family or friends or whatever the case may be. And have you established those boundaries to help with that balance or integration?
I can say I'm a lot better now. It's still a work in progress. But yeah, I mean, again, I know, like, during my time at Florida State, I was, putting in those extra hours. I'm like, okay, I need to show up earlier on time, especially during my time working with, the football team. at Florida State. I mean, football is kind of, a beast of its own. And, but, knowing, the office opens at 8 a.m. Well, I'm going to try to get there at 7:45, 7:30 a.m., and really and I think a lot of, people in my position when you first enter, this field, like, yeah, I'm going to have to put in those extra hours, whether it's early, whether it's late. And even after my internship here at Oklahoma, luckily enough, when I got to Oklahoma, it was at the end of the spring semester. So it was a little bit, a lot more downtime instead of getting there right at semester or in the middle of a semester or whatnot. But during that, those first few months, literally just grinding it out, staying long hours and literally just kind of trying to learn, how they do advising here at Oklahoma. As I always say, the work's going to be the work. It's all the same. And, or I should say, it's all English, but it's a different language in a sense. Every university does it differently. And so really putting those extra hours, I think was needed for me, at least, to grow and develop, is knowing I need to, put in overtime and, do a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that a lot of people don't see, perhaps, and whatnot. But I think that has helped me, definitely learn it faster. And just how I grow is just kind of grinding it out and just putting myself through that. But I'm also learning, and I know it's making me better. And it's definitely helped me with kind of that balance and putting up boundaries for myself. Still a work in progress. I mean, I know a lot of people I've crossed paths with could tell you, like, Josh is always just, whenever they can tell when I'm like, overstressed, they can see it and whatnot. So luckily enough, I've been able to put up, those boundaries of being able to find, again, still working on big progress, but find that balance with my work here as an athletic academic advisor, but also finding those, like, that time, for personal stuff, making sure I'm taking care of myself outside of the office as well. Because I know if I'm not taking care of myself outside of the office, I'm not going to be able to perform as well for my student athletes here and my coworkers when I'm on the job and in the office.
One of the things, especially as a new administrator, that I appreciated was the village of people that surrounded me and helped me in the new role. When I was at Jackson State, Dr. Adrian Sweeney, Dr. Janice Lavallee, they took me and they poured into me knowledge, information. But one of the other things they poured into me was just holistic support. Like they would take, I know for Dr. G would take me to lunch and talk one-on-one. Hey, not only how is your work identity doing, but how is your social life doing? How's your family doing? Can you talk about your village at Oklahoma? Who are those administrators that's pouring into you and helping your vocational responsibilities, but also, the social life aspect of it?
Yeah, here, I mean, I've had lots of people. The good thing, I think, I remember everyone that's helped me along the way here. Well before I came to Oklahoma, people at Wyoming, people at Florida State. Here at Oklahoma, I'm, again, I'm very lucky to have, the staff that I have in our department to support me and whatnot. I always think of, one of my mentors at Florida State, actually, Chad McCullen, who always said, like, the work's going to be the work. It's the people, you work with who support you, that's really going to make that difference. And I'm fortunate enough here at Oklahoma, I have, an entire office who can support me along the way. I mean, Max Krieger, who's an athletic academic advisor here at Oklahoma, has been enormously helpful and supportive with me. We share actually an office, our offices are right next to each other. And he's, been able to, to just take that extra time and help me learn and grow. Our, athletic director of academics, Mike Mead, is always there available for me, if I have questions and support too as well. And along as everyone else here, Kate Butane, Jay Riddle, Kendra, Justin, everyone, whether they're old or new, everyone brings, at least in my world, that support of questions and knowledge that can help support me. And I think more importantly is not only having the support in academics, but in other departments as well. Find that aspect. I've been able to have friends and supports, in marketing, in ticketing, in our Sooner Club, in, athletic training and sports and strength and conditioning. In all aspects, I've been able to form relationships with other staff members who, might not be able to support me in the job as far as academics, but able to support me, outside. We're able to have those conversations about life, how family is, how we're doing, and just having, that support outside of, academics. has been very helpful, and just having that, group and those people, to support you along the way. And of course, now I want to just, it's not only here at Oklahoma. I'm kind of going off the question, that you asked, Travis, but, I'm really thankful of what I had at Florida State and those people. I mean, I owe tremendously a lot to Charlie Hogan, who was the one who, took a chance on me, who, offered me a position at Florida State to continue to grow and develop. And everyone down there, Kathy Badger. I mean, a lot of people who aren't there right now, but Kathy Badger, who's at Utah right now, Dr. Regina Johnson, who was on this series, earlier. I think this month was tremendous as far as offering the support. Isaac, who's Rodriguez, who's at Tennessee right now, huge support during my time there. Even, people in my fellow cohort, like Elizabeth Gloria, Tiffany Milliam, Abby Kroll, Adam Cannon, everyone there along the way, Maggie Flemings. I mean, I'm doing a lot of shout outs here because I do remember people who have helped me along the way, who have offered that support, who took time, to get me to where I'm at. And even at Wyoming, to Al Reiser, who's right now at Whitman College in Washington, was the first person to kind of introduce me to this field. So along the way of just forming those connections and bridges has really helped me to get to now, and being able to connect and support myself with the people around me, whether it's at Oklahoma or, across the country, in the field of academics, and even outside as well. And, getting away from work and having those personal relationships outside of, the office.
Hey, don't apologize. People deserve their flowers while they're still here, and those people affected your life and have impacted how you've been able to transverse. So no, absolutely. Thank you for that, Josh.
So I also went through an assistant academic coaching position. And so one of the things for me when I first started my first full-time role was, you feel prepared, but then there's also that nervousness that comes with having the first coaches meeting that you're running on your own at that point, right? And so I would love to hear from you. How did you approach, that first meeting that you had with the coaches that was on your own? And, how do you shake off the nervousness or maybe any of that imposter syndrome that you might feel when you're going into that meeting, knowing that, hey, you've done the work to be prepared for that moment?
It's nerve-wracking, I can tell you that. I mean, at my time at Wyoming, I didn't really do, I didn't, talk in front of a lot of coaches. So my first experience was at Florida State with their football team. And again, I'm very appreciative of what Coach Mike Norvell at Florida State with, what he's doing with that program of allowing me that opportunity to grow and whatnot. And, allowing someone like me as an assistant academic advisor to be able to present in front of, the whole entire team, the coaching staff, but as well as, the position coaches that I worked with, to kind of basically be that, that bridge of communication of, hey, this is how your student athletes are doing, in the classroom. And these are the people, that you need to be to know about. And I remember that first time, man, and I'm glad Elizabeth is currently on this podcast right now, listening in, because we were together working with football at Florida State. And I remember that first meeting we go into, everyone tells you like what to prepare for, but when you get up there in front of a staff, with over, about, 50 to 75 people, ranging from coaching staff to strength and conditioning, athletic training, nutrition, academics, you're just like, oh, and then you kind of forget everything you say. And when now you're just like, oh God, hopefully I can just keep it nice and simple. If there's a problem, have a solution instead of just rambling on and on and on. So, I mean, it's, the anxiety and the imposter, syndrome was there, but I think, again, it just learning from it, knowing also that they also know that you're learning. You're a human. Like this is, a process that you're training yourself, you're growing and developing in your area. And so I think many of them just knew, kind of like they might be like, okay, what was that? But they know that, you got to start somewhere. Everyone starts somewhere, and everyone's going to be in, everyone has been in those positions of like, okay, and you can plan it out all in your head, but then, when it's time to perform it, it all goes out the window. But, I think, especially with coaches, at Florida State, whether it was football or my women's tennis team, really developed, kind of how to like going in, just knowing, what they're looking for and kind of, again, feeling them out. Like, what is their best way of communication? What is their best way of taking in information and learning from that? And that's helped me a lot as far as, during my time there, growing over my, the year I was there, just knowing, okay, this is how, this coach likes to be presented with, information and communication. This is how this coach feels, likes to get their information. They might, maybe this is what they want as far as information before a meeting and whatnot. And then when you have those big meetings and whatnot, just knowing, at least for me, I'd always, at first didn't have it, but then I had my notes typed up on a paper, as each little bullet point with kind of stuff to highlight, nice, short and simple, just explaining it. So people can get like, okay, that's like, there's, a problem or a situation and there's a solution being made and had. And so keeping it nice, short and simple. And so you can, don't need to get into the details, more so like, this is what's happening. This is what we're doing. And that's really helped me develop, even here at OU now, working with and communicating with our, track and field, cross country coaching staff, as well our men's gymnastics coaching staff too, of how to present, that kind of information and meeting with them about, sometimes highlighting the goods, but also, highlighting our concerns about certain, situations. So, and you continue to learn too. I know the next step I take is all of us, when you meet new coaches, new coaching staffs, it's kind of like restarting again, but at least you have, a table of kind of like, being able to listen and learn, be like, okay, this is, and watch and get to know them as a person first and as a coach and how they, process communication and just kind of adapting to, okay, can't use this or whatnot. This is the best way to, provide information to them.
And so a follow-up to that, when you talked about your transition from going from Florida State to Oklahoma, you're dealing with a different set of coaches with a different set of expectations. Can you talk about what maybe your first 30, 60 days might have looked like, as far as how did you approach trying to learn the program, learn the coach's expectations, so that when you were presenting to them, you were making sure you were hitting the information that they were looking for?
Yeah, communication. I mean, I think like all of us say, like, it's communicate is so important, and in our field. And so, and I think that is the first step, but then also listening as well, active listening. Really truly kind of learn from the coaching staff, but also people who have already been there, or like maybe I've already worked with those coaches at that institution. And really being like, hey, I know you've worked with, so-and-so and whatnot. What's your best, approach, or how do you, what did you do talking and communicating with them? And then of course, you form your own kind of identity of how you want to approach stuff. You just take little nuggets here and there of how you want to be you still, but able to still provide the information that they're looking for. And I think, at least here at Oklahoma, talking with, a previous advisor, Kara, before she left for currently at Kansas, talking with her about like, okay, you've already worked with this coaching staff. What do they expect? What did you do that worked? What might not have worked? And then start forming your kind of own, identity in a sense of, as an academic advisor of, this is bits and pieces that I've learned, but now I'm going to, take and form it into the way that is best fitted for me in way and communicating with them. And so, and even at Florida State too, it's like learning, listening, knowing, from the staff who had already been there for a while, knowing that coaching staff as well, helped a lot, kind of, how to approach that. But also to, if you have the nerves, and looking up, I built that up in the first 30 to 60 days, really getting myself in front of the coaches more than just that one meeting and whatnot. If I see them in the hall, passing them, saying hi, good morning, in the elevator, kind of start building that relationship outside of when you're, presenting, situation about their student athletes. And, or sometimes, at least for me, I mean, I guess I had just the nerve going over to the football offices and just speaking in to see if Coach Dugans or was inside in his wide receiver office and just saying, hey, coach, how are you doing? Hope you're doing well. And just continuing on and just kind of help building that rapport. I mean, again, as Chad, McKellen at Florida State told me, the better relationship, the better the advising. Kind of, I do the same thing with my coaches. The better relationship, the better the, that communication with the coaches. I want to get them, them to know more than just, Coach Langford, Coach Langley, Coach Davis, Coach Freeman. I want to know them more as, themselves. I want to know them as Tim, as Gerald, as Michelle, knowing them as that person. And I think that really helps, create that relationship and build that, foundation of communication. And of course, most of that doesn't happen in the first 30 to 60 days, but, you got to start somewhere. And usually, I'm a little, standoffish a little bit of just, okay, how do I feel in the waters? But usually after, you start building it slow by slowly, that beginning process. And lucky enough where I am now, coming up to a year at OU, I feel very fortunate enough to have those kinds of relationships with my coaching staffs and all the sports I work with.
Man, Josh, I love immediately when I heard better communication, better relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I think that can be applied to a lot of facets in life.
And so before we get to our rapid fire segment, I do want to ask you, we've talked a lot about kind of what the role looks like and how you've adjusted from an administrator perspective to administrator. So whether that's coaches or other people within, your academic support unit, what has it been like working with students? And particularly, I'm curious if your experience working with community health has played a role in how you interact with the students or giving you any additional insight that has helped you be more successful in building those relationships with your students.
Of course, yeah. I think my time, as a community health worker in Colorado really kind of built a strong foundation to how I approach stuff, because my role as a community health worker was working with those in need, those who needed that extra support, those who needed more than just going to their PCP and, their, maybe their therapist or whatever their support team at the time. My role really just helping them, kind of what we do now, is connecting them to those supports and resources of how to, live their life better holistically and their overall well-being. And as a community health worker, I worked with everyone from young adults, teenagers, 13, 14, 15-year-olds to elderly people well in their 80s and whatnot. So that whole range of seeing, the development over, a lifespan of how to different, approach different people in different stages of their life, but also knowing that everyone is, unique and individual, and everyone's different as far as what they need and support wise. They might be in the same situation, but they need a different plan, which has really helped, of course, with academics, really trying to individualize those plans for our student athletes. You could have two student athletes coming in as freshmen, really smart, who both want to pursue, marketing, but yet they're both going to be needing a different path to get to that. And so my time as a community health worker really helping me be, flexible, really, again, kind of that, that counseling background in a sense, and that world of really just, I always say active listening, active listening, really truly trying to clear your mind. I mean, it's easier said than done. I mean, I'm still working on that too, but truly listening to people and, not already having formulated a plan or response, but truly kind of digging deeper. And, my approach as a community health worker, and when I, thought, the world of mental health was kind of my calling, really taking a person-centered approach, kind of, as I've been starting to refer to a lot as just riding shotgun. They're in the driver's seat, they have the wheel, they have all the controls, but yet I'm in shotgun. I'm still part of, that, the journey, the direction, maybe looking at the map and telling them where to go. At the end of the day, they're the ones with the wheel and the gas and brake pedal. And so I can give them, talking with them, and we have a plan to get to this destination, and I can say this might be the route that we need to take, but at the end of the day, they're the ones who can control and steer which direction we go. And that kind of helped, with that foundation as a community health worker to now working with student athletes, of just knowing, there's only so much I can do, but like, as long as I can offer and be that support and connect them through the resources and supports that we've talked about and communicate with each other to best help them moving forward, I can be happy with that during my time in Colorado as a, community health worker, and now as an athletic academic advisor.
One of the things we do on each year, we go to these rapid fire questions. So I have the first one, Lucy will have the next one. What do new administrators need to hear more of? And what do they need to hear less of?
Oh, that's a good question. Oh man, I think at least for during my time here at the University of Oklahoma at OU, I think I always hate I think all of us we always bring up money and the financial side. It's just the nature of it, no matter how much you love it or hate it. But I think that can be for both and be like, you need to talk more about, supporting your staff, making sure, they're getting taken care of and whatnot, especially this day and age with the changing of athletics, especially here at OU with, our transition in a year to the SEC and, with NIL with our student athletes and just life in general of just, cost of living and being able to support yourself and your family. It can be both of like, we need more support and whatnot in that aspect, but also we don't need to be talking about that as well because you get tired of it. So, but I think, that's kind of just a fun one that I just wanted to throw out there. But on a more serious note, I think, what I think, administrators need to like hear, I guess, hear more of from me. It's just, making sure you're investing in those, not forgetting about your staff and making sure, you're providing them, with the supports that they need to be successful in. And I think OU does a good job, but of course, every institution, I feel like not just, there's always room for improvement as well. And I think, maybe something that they need to hear less of is, maybe, at least for me, I'm like, at the end of the day, it is a business. And I don't like using that term, but at the end of the day, it is. But really, what I would like to hear less of is that term is it's a business. For me, where I'm at, I'm really here. I want to be sure I'm doing everything I can to support our student athletes, these young adults, to where they're once they leave and graduate with a degree, that they're prepared for that next step in life.
All right. And so our last question is going to be, what is one responsibility that you carry that you would not change?
Being that, that support outside of their athletic obligations and academics, and try to just be someone and just be Josh, for them, and being that person to where they feel just, just come in and just talk. I do, it's a little different, I think, than a response that I would have maybe a year ago, but just being able to just, again, going back to that relationship, having them just, I love it when student athletes come and just want to just hang and talk. And I think that's something, part of the job that makes me want, I think makes all of us want to be in this field, is just being that support. We only have these student athletes, maybe 4 or 5 years, a lot shorter if they transfer or have different plans in life. And so for me, I really don't want to change, being at least during their time here, no matter how long or short it is, that just being, having a good impression, being, a positive, influence or support for them during their time here. And I know, you're not going to be able to do that with every single student athlete. It's just being a human and just knowing, during your time, you're going to have student athletes that do not like you. And, when they move on, they do not wish to ever see you or talk to you about you again. But if I can be that person, just to have that relationship, just, talk about life. Don't talk about academics, don't talk about their sport, just talk about, life in general. I think that's something that I will, never change, as far as, knowing at the end of the day. I know, we say, we're out there to be their friends, we're there to be their academic advisor, but which is true, but there's also that time part of where, you can be, a supportive role model or something like that for them. And that's something that hopefully I can, influence and touch, student athletes as they come and go wherever I am at, and, be able to at least have a positive, supportive, experience, when we do interact and during their time with me.
And Josh, thank you so much for that information and insight. Usually we have these attention grabber quotes just so we can bring our viewers in. It's going to be hard because you gave us some good content. I'm still sitting here that better communication builds better relationships. I think people can take that and it's going to be really useful in their everyday experiences. Again, thank you for everything that you provided. Before we leave, we do want to thank some individuals. I want to acknowledge and thank the ECC subcommittees that have supported our initiative, our ECC chair, Mr. Ramon Cooper, for his support, one of our previous interviewees within our Mother series, Ms. Shanika Mungeon, who currently serves on the N4A board, and then also Ms. Jackie Nicholson is currently our president for N4A. So thank you so much for your time, Josh, and everything, and for our viewers, take care.